A factory worker tightens a bolt on an engine that will never officially exist. Not in the way it truly is. The car it belongs to will leave this building rated at 276 horsepower. But everyone in this factory knows the real number. It is higher. Much higher. And nobody is going to say a word about it. This is not a story about a car. It is a story about a secret. About an industry that looked at what it had built, felt the ground shifting beneath its feet, and made one of the strangest decisions in automotive history. A decision that, against every expectation, made everything bigger. To understand why Japan banned its own greatest cars, you first have to understand what Japan was like in the late 1980s. The economy was on fire. Money was flowing through the streets of Tokyo like water. And the country's car manufacturers, Nissan, Toyota, Honda, Mitsubishi, were locked in a war. Not a real war, a horsepower war. Every year, each company tried to out-engineer the others. Turbos got bigger, engines got meaner, bodies got lighter. The cars rolling out of Japan during this period were extraordinary. Machines that could humiliate Italian supercars at half the price. The Nissan Skyline GT-R, the Toyota Supra, the Honda NSX, the Mitsubishi 3000 GT. These were not just good cars. They were weapons disguised as road vehicles, and the streets were starting to feel it. Accident rates climbed. Young men raced on public roads at midnight, chasing each other through mountain passes and city highways. Deaths rose. Insurance companies grew furious. The government grew impatient. The message was clear. Either the industry fixed the problem, or the government would fix it for them. And nobody wanted to find out what that looked like. The car companies had a choice. And in 1988, they made it. There was no ceremony, no press conference, no official document with signatures and stamps. Just a quiet agreement, a gentleman's agreement, between the biggest names in Japanese automotive manufacturing. The deal was simple. No Japanese cars sold in Japan would be advertised with more than 276 horsepower. That was the ceiling. That was the number. And nobody would go above it. 276. On paper, it looked like responsibility. Like an industry policing itself before the government could step in. And, in a way, it was. But there was a layer beneath the surface that everyone who worked in those factories, those showrooms, those tuner shops already knew about. The cars were lying. Journalists who tested the Skyline GT-R straight from the dealership floor found something unexpected on the dynamometer. The numbers did not match what Nissan had printed in the brochure. Not by a little. The real output of some of these factory cars was closer to 300, 320, even 330 horsepower. Nissan knew it. Toyota knew it. They all knew it, but the agreement said, advertised. And on paper, the number was always 276. Always. It was a wink, and they knew. A game played in plain sight by an entire industry. The government got its headline. The insurance companies calmed down. And behind closed doors, the engineers kept building the most exciting machines on the planet. They just stopped being honest about what those machines could actually do. Here is where the story turns. Here is the part nobody planned. The cap was supposed to slow things down. Instead, it lit a fuse. Because when you put a ceiling on something, and that something is full of passionate engineers and obsessive car enthusiasts, the ceiling does not become a stopping point. It becomes a challenge, a puzzle, an invitation. Japan's tuning industry exploded almost overnight. Shops that had been quietly operating on the fringes of the car world suddenly found themselves with a reason to exist that had never been so clear. HKS Trust Greddy. Blitz, Tomei, Nismo. These were not ordinary mechanics. They were scientists, artists, and engineers who understood something fundamental. If the factory was forced to stop at 276, then the real work, the interesting work, happened after the car left the factory. A stock Skyline GT-R left the showroom at 276 horsepower, officially. A properly built one, touched by the right hands with the right parts, could make 500, 600, 700. Some builds crossed 1,000 horsepower and kept going. The cap had not ended the race. It had simply moved the race to a different track. And with the race came the culture. Drifting competitions where drivers slid their modified machines sideways through mountain corners for points and glory. Time attack events where a single second could mean everything. Car clubs that became families. A whole underground world of people united by the shared obsession of making something already extraordinary into something truly impossible. Then came Initial D, the manga, and later the anime, about a teenager in a humble Toyota AE86 who descends mountain roads at terrifying speed, beating cars worth 10 times what his father paid for the old Corolla. It became a phenomenon, a mythology, a window into a world that the gentleman's agreement had helped create, even if nobody planned it that way. The ban had compressed the culture like a turbocharger compresses air, and when the pressure released, everything exploded outward. The gentleman's agreement did not last forever. Nothing does. By the mid-2000s, the handshake had quietly faded. Japanese manufacturers began officially rating their cars above 276 horsepower again. The ceiling was lifted. The lie was no longer necessary. But something strange had happened in the years between the agreement and its end. The culture it had accidentally created did not need the agreement anymore. It had grown larger than any policy or cap or official number could contain. The tuner shops were still there. The events were still running. The knowledge passed down from master mechanics to apprentices, from forum post to forum post, from one generation of enthusiasts to the next. That knowledge did not disappear when the agreement ended. It had become part of the DNA of an entire community. Japan had not simply built great cars during the cap era, it had built a religion. Today, a used Nissan Skyline GT-R can sell for more than a brand new luxury car. People fly across the world to find specific engines from specific years. Auction prices for the right car in the right condition climb into numbers that would have seemed impossible 20 years ago. None of that would exist if Japan had simply kept building more powerful factory cars without restriction. If there had been no cap, there would have been no tuner era, no culture built around working around limits, no community forged in the shared obsession of squeezing more out of what you had. The gentleman's agreement had a villain: insurance lobbying, government pressure, an industry scared of its own success. It had a consequence: the golden era of tuning. And it had a twist that nobody saw coming. The ban that was supposed to slow Japan's car culture down was the same ban that made it legendary.